Welcome into 88.3 The Buzz, live from St. Bonaventure University. You're listening to the Director's Cut with Nic Rohloff and Tyler Smith. And we were originally going to start the show off with no football for the first time in ever.
Yeah, long time.
But breaking news, the most important news ever, our boy Carlton Davis got verified.
Finally. Bucs secondary finally getting some respect. Now, for those who aren't aware, Twitter has a function where they put a check mark next to your username if you have, if you're a professional athlete, a celebrity, or anybody who needs recognition that has a common name. Just so you know that that's the person actually tweeting it. So Carlton Davis was unverified for a little bit, and now he can finally, slide into Michael Thomas's mentions and talk more smack.
We're like Thanos with the Infinity Gauntlet. I don't know if any of you guys get that reference, but we got everybody in the secondary verified but one, and we're just missing that one stone to get it complete.
Jordan Whitehead. Now, the safeties of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have just been masterful to watch, and the cornerbacks alike as well. The whole secondary has just been so entertaining. We can't stress it enough, but we're still missing one member, and that's Jordan Whitehead. Twitter, Jack Dempsey, you need to get on it.
All right, and now that we got the most important breaking news of the day done, now we get into our hometown Bonaventure Bonnies. 1-1 week. I know some people, including our station manager, thought they were going to go 2, but we ended up going 1-1. We beat LaSalle 86-73 on I think it was Tuesday, and then lost to VCU on Friday 67-64. We'll start positive and go with the win against LaSalle, because after that game, I felt pretty good about the Bonnies, considering they put up 86 points and had its most well-balanced scoring output of the year. But then things got bad on Friday. But let's just talk about Tuesday. What do you think was the biggest reason for the 3-point success of the Bonnies?
Well, I anticipated your question to be the biggest reason for that win, and you just mentioned it. It was exactly that. The 3-point efficiency of the Bonnies, they shot 9 of 14. That's over 63%, and that probably won't be matched in any capacity for the rest of the season. So that's going to be the best 3-point exhibition that the Bonnies put on, and it obviously resulted in their most points of the season being 86. And they took care of a LaSalle team that they obviously needed to take care of. Now, a tidbit from that game that not a lot of people got to see the full extent of, but I believe you were there, and I was too, covering the game for WSBU. Nick, you were down running the camera for the ESPN Plus broadcast. And a little something happened about 10 minutes into the game. LaSalle head coach Ashley Howard actually was ejected from the game after jawing with the referees for a large portion of the first half, and then a missed call or a no call on one end where they missed a layup. And admittedly, there was some contact. Just put Howard over the edge. And he went on a rant, for a lack of a better word, profanity, vendettas against the referees. It pretty much had everything. And Ashley Howard was just not, having the situation that was going on in that game right now with Atlantic 10 referees. And you know what? It's funny. A lot of people have kind of said that about Atlantic 10 referees as of late. They're letting too much go. They're calling too many ticky-tack fouls. So there has to be some consistency going on with the Atlantic 10 referees. And Ashley Howard just was voicing his opinion quite loudly at that.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that, and you said that I was on ESPN Plus working camera, which I was. I was on the baseline near Bonaventure's bench.
Oh, so you're on the opposite side?
No, where I was opposite to where the coach was.
Yes.
Where he went ballistic, but I was right there for the alleged missed foul call, and there was a little bit of contact. But to me, I think the actual play should have been a play on, like they had it. I didn't see a problem with the foul call or the no foul call. It looks pretty clean to me, just in the quickness of the game. But then all of a sudden, Bonaventure's going up the court, and then nope, here he comes screaming out. It was electric, though, I got to say, because you were in the building.
Yeah, it was cool because in this new wild season we have of college basketball, the gyms are largely empty, especially us playing in New York State. The gym's really empty, other than, people running the broadcast, the two teams, and, the media members who are, we're all the way up in the reds of the Riley Center, which is, the theater seats above the bleachers. So we're pretty high up, but boy, could you hear everything that Ash Howard wanted to say in that rant. He had a little portion of it was BS, and then he walked out, and then 10 seconds later, it seemed like the situation is dissolved. Then he comes back in. He walked back in, and he needed to tell the referees that they were a bleeping disgrace. And that was where he exited the game for the last time. And then it ended up being a nice situation at the end of the game. You saw Mark Schmidt and Ash Howard exchanging some words once the two teams went to the locker room. So there's no bad blood between A-10 coaches. I mean, Schmidt was asked about that tirade post-game. He didn't want to comment. So it seems like the A-10 coaches are all in a nice coalition of colleagues where they respect each other. So there was no bad blood between them. And, it just wasn't going Ash Howard's way that night.
Yeah, and it was such a quick ejection, too. And that's the thing. You said there was only like 7-8 minutes left in the first half, which is 12 minutes of game time. But when you see coaches get ejected, it's usually at least a full half of getting annoyed with missed calls or too many calls against you. And it's usually 12 minutes, and he already had enough.
So this is the deal. He sees this missed foul call, and he sprints into Schmidt's coaching box. Can't do it. That's automatic tech for running out on the floor, especially past your coach's box. So that's one tech. Then all he's got to do is mouth off one more time. See ya. You're out of here. And that's what ended up happening. But I mean, credit to Ash Howard. I mean, I don't know if I would have been as enthusiastic about this whole tirade as he did, because I mean, he really put his team. He would think an advantage, because that kind of fires your team up after a coach gets ejected, showing all that emotion and passion for your squad. But they needed him out there. He was putting together a couple decent wins for LaSalle over St. Louis, over Dayton. They were getting some pretty A-10 killing wins, and they didn't have him for a large portion of the game. And credit to associate head coach Kyle Griffin. I mean, he kept him in it for a lot of the game. I mean, they went down 18 a couple times, but they brought it down to almost single digits in the last 10 minutes of that game. And credit to him for keeping the Explorers out there.
Yeah, let's go into the actual game, because you saw every starter score at least 10 points. Down Mulch being the lowest, but then the other four, 15, 17, 18, 20. And they went, you mentioned earlier, 9 for 14 for 3, but going 6 for 6 in the back court. Kyle Lofton with 3 made threes coming into the game, went home going 3 for 3 himself. That just shows the potential with this, how good Bonaventure plays defense if they just had the 3-point shooting that you and I have been begging for the past couple shows. This is how dangerous this team could be.
It's not even that they need to score 3-pointers at a 60% clip. They don't. Just score it at
40.
No, I can't even ask for 40. If you just hit consistently at 35%, we'll win more games. I promise. Now, Kyle Lofton, like you mentioned, his numbers were only 3 makes going into that game. He was 8%, so that dilutes a lot of the Bonnies' 3-point percentage this season. Last year, he was obviously, the year before, he was obviously in the low 30s, mid 30s as far as shooting the long range shot. So his percentage this year kind of skews the whole team, but you're going to need consistency all around. Don Welch didn't hit great big shots against VCU. Jaron Holmes was pretty much disappeared in that game. Kyle Lofton also pretty much disappeared in that game. And I know we're on the LaSalle game right now, but going forward, that's going to need to be more consistent from outside if we want to have any chance at March Madness.
Oh, yeah, and we were talking about pre-show that Lenardi, ESPN bracketology guy, actually still has us as a last 4-in team, which, I mean, obviously we want the Bonnies in the field, but we both disagreed with that. I mean, yeah, Bonaventure beat VCU in their first matchup by 16, but that took a pretty spectacular second half. And then they beat Richmond in Richmond, was pretty good. But then after those two games, losing to the two best teams in the A-10, obviously not record-wise with St. Louis, but everyone knows they're the best, most of the best team.
Yeah.
That gives you some doubt going forward, and it's not great. And we can transition into the VCU game on Friday night, because I want to show you statistically what went wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And we mentioned the 3-point shooting. Obviously, in that game against VCU, they went 3 of 15, and the game against LaSalle was 9 of 14. So that's obviously a big difference. But here's the thing where the game was lost, and it's free throw shooting. Bonaventure, who's been a great free throw shooting team this year, shot 25 free throws in both Wednesday's game or Tuesday game and Friday's game. 25 each game. The win, they made 21. The loss, they made 17. They lost by 3. So if they made those 4 like they did against LaSalle, it's a win. Obviously, it's hindsight. But the free throw shooting was inexplicable to me because you have Attaway who went 5 of 6. That's good. Oshun made his 1. Dom went 2 of 3. That's fine. AJ, even Vasquez, went 6 of 7 off the bench, which was interesting. But our best free throw shooter, Kyle Lofton, went 2 for 5, and Jaron went 1 for 3. As a starting backcourt, you can't miss a combined 4 free throws, especially with only attempting 8.
And I know we mentioned that, Bonaventure fell to VCU. We didn't mention the score, though. And you just mentioned Kyle Lofton missed 3 free throws. Jaron Holmes missed 2. Lost the game by 3. That's 5. That's a win. That's literally a win right there. And I don't really know, it's always something. There's always a hole in the game. They have not put together a complete game yet. That's the problem. The only complete game that they ever really put up was St. Joe's when Holmes went off for 38. I mean, I think that was the only game where I could say that the Bonnies played to their full potential, and we're still looking for it, and we're almost in March. So there's going to have to be some sort of, adjustment. And like I said, in previous shows, Mark Schmidt and the Bonnies are very good at adjusting to adversity. So this is only another, bump in the road that they have to face because the schedule becomes much tougher from here on out. We were going to get a tune-up game versus Fordham on Wednesday. That game's not happening anymore. Fordham paused all athletic activities, and their whole campus is pretty much shut down right now.
They're done until the A10 tournament.
Yeah, they're pretty much done until the A10 tournament. UMass has been out for a while. That game got canceled most recently as well. And we're going to need to find an opponent now. Nick, who's doing a crew again for ESPN Plus for this Wednesday's game. And I say this Wednesday's game because there's still one happening. We just don't know the opponent yet. Apparently, the A10 is scheduling a game for the Bonnies on Wednesday, which is good. Thank God, because the majority of our canceled games this season have not seen a second opponent for us to face on that same date. So I give credit to the A10 for finding us another opponent on such short notice if they do.
One thing I want to mention about the VCU game before we move on to the A10 and March Madness and what they have to do to improve, and this kind of ties into one of my things on what Bonaventure needs to improve on in order to make noise and possibly still get into the March Madness tournament. As I think you tweeted it, I could be getting confused, but I think you did. Is that for next year, Mark Schmidt needs to find a big man transfer. I thought it was you, but I wasn't 100% confident. That is so true because against VCU, they had 19 offensive rebounds.
That's been an issue all year, and I can't even be mad at that anymore because I just know for a fact that the Bonnies will never be getting a defensive board on the first try.
It's just so infuriating watching because Oshun, I think, played it so well defensively Friday night.
Yeah, he did.
5 blocks. It felt like he had 10, to be honest with you. But then they just give up too many rebounds, and that's going to happen when you've got a 6'10 center like Oshun, but then your next tallest guy is 6'5", 6'6". And I credit Dom Welch, he's not – Jalen Attaway plays the 4, but I think Dom is just a smidge taller than him.
Defensively, I mean, I could put either of them at the 4, I'll tell you that.
And I applaud Dom for his rebounding skills. I mean, he had 7, so it's not terrible as the 3 technically. But teams are just going to abuse you, and when you don't have 2 guys that can rebound.
Think about this. St. Louis has 3 bigs that they can rotate down low.
And that killed us when we played.
Killed us. Hassan French is not tall, but he's bulky. I always forget his name. Big, bulky, farmer big that St. Louis has. Kid dominated against us. I mentioned it on last week's show. He dominated against us, and he'll do it again if he's given the chance. So, and they have another big that they can rotate as well. So St. Louis is a team that automatically is a matchup nightmare for the Bonnies. VCU not as much. Their bigs aren't really their strong suit. That team's kind of goes as Bones Highland goes. So whatever he does basically dictates the success of that team. But for teams like St. Louis and teams like Davidson, whose best bet player is their big, that's going to be something we have to watch out for sure.
Oh, yeah. And the one thing that teams might look to exploit the Bonnies, because the Bonnies have actually played really good defense this year and are one of the better defensive teams in the A10. They struggle at offense at times, but the defense has been consistently there. Is VCU was running a lot of pick and roll, high pick and roll action as we break down to bring Oshun away from the basket, and then they'd come around the screen and either get by him, and then he'd have to contest the shot, leading to a weak side rebound, or a quick pass shot. Oshun can't get back inside for the rebound, and that's how they gathered their offensive rebounds if you're VCU. So I think that could be an issue coming down the stretch. It's too bad that, and Oshun actually played, it almost felt like he was getting there offensively in the second half, because he actually got like 2 or 3 buckets in a row. He finished with 11, 5 and 9 shooting, but I think he had 0 in the first half. If we could play Jalen Shaw and Oshun at the same time, this team would be, because the rebounding was there, the interior defense would be there. It's just that the team would struggle so much offensively because Kyle's always going to be on the floor, and he struggled from 3. Oshun and Jalen Shaw can't basically make anything outside of the paint. And
I was going to say that lineup might be as much spacing as 5 Ben Simmons.
I think you're right, but like it would be so good defensively, and
it would be
never give up an offensive rebound. It feels like, but I don't know if you played that team for 40 minutes. I don't know if you get 30 points.
Oh, I agree. And one thing about that, your remedy for fixing defensive rebounding struggles is that when you watch these Bonnies players, all of them can rebound. That's a fact. That Dom Welch, Jalen Attaway, Oshun Oshuni, Jalen Shaw, and I mean even the guards sometimes, Kyle and Jaren can get some boards as well. But you ever seen a box out once by the Bonnies? Once. They don't box out. All they do is jump. Every time you see a ball go up, it's just Oshun skying for the rebound, trying his best to be to get the ball at its highest point. And that's the same thing with Dom. I mean, you look at him trying to get putback dunks and stuff like that. Like, he's not looking for the box out. He's looking for attacking the ball with his hands. And that's the same thing with Attaway as well. Attaway, I will admit, I believe that his basketball IQ is through the roof. And I think he has the ability to be aware of boxing out in situations like that, but I haven't really seen it consistently yet. That's going to be something that the Bonnies have to emphasize for sure, because if you're allowing offensive rebounds against teams that are for sure tournament teams, there's just no chance that you even come close in a round of 64, first 4, round of 32 matchup.
Yeah, and let's look ahead just real quick before we go to break. I kind of already mentioned what I think this team needs to improve on, and that's defensive rebounding. And we know basically they need to improve their three-point shooting. But is there anything you can rattle off right now before we head to break that the team needs to improve on to make a run down the stretch, make a run in the 10s, and hopefully be in that field 68?
Yeah, just really consistency, because I wrote about it last week saying that it's so nice that we have 5 guys who can score in double figures night in and night out. That's so nice. But I do kind of want a scoring pecking order of sorts,
We thought we had it.
We thought we had it, but it seems like that kind of changes every game now. I mean, Attaway has been the leading scorer the past 2 games. And then you saw the couple games before that. I mean, Dom led the team one game. I mean, Kyle led the team another. Oshun led the team another. And then Jaren obviously had those 2 huge games back-to-back where he led the team. I mean, you look at these 5 players, they're all very good, but there needs to be an order in which they attack the basket, attack their shot, so that the other players don't get as gassed, and they're all not doing it at the same time to the point where our depth really hurts us more than anything. And then the other thing that they need to fix is first half fouling, because it is so brutal seeing one of our guys get sat for 7 straight minutes. When we have a rotation of 5 or 6 guys that we play the entire game, one of them cannot afford to get in foul trouble in the first half, because it takes the complete rhythm out of the offense, and we'll basically have no spacing. We'll be dribbling around the shot clock for 30 seconds, and we'll hoist up some long 2 that nobody's going to like. So, you just got to control the foul calls in the first half. I know the A10, like I said, the A10 refs have been calling ticky-tack fouls and such, but you got to find a way to be diligent and be disciplined and not foul in the first half, because if a team gets into the double bonus in the first half against the St. Bonaventure Bonnies men's basketball team, at least one starter is going to have 3, and at least one starter is going to have 2. That's not a recipe for success, especially in the second half when you're playing better teams.
I am so glad you brought that up, because you hammered it right on the head. I mean, that has been a real issue the past 2 or 3 games. It wasn't so much of an issue against LaSalle, but VCU and St. Louis, the 2 good teams we played, that absolutely killed us.
And it wasn't an issue against LaSalle, but if it was any team else, it would have been, because Jaron Holmes, it was his second straight game where he had 3 first-half fouls, and he did it again in VCU where he had 2 early. Schmidt yanked him early. I didn't even know it. I turned the game on 5 minutes late. I didn't think he was playing. He did not play for like 10 minutes straight in the first half because he had two quick fouls in maybe the first 3 minutes.
Yeah, Jaron needs to get it back together because he had those 2 monster games. You mentioned 38 against St. Joe's.
He's another one of those players.
He's
another one of those players where I really think he has a high basketball IQ. He's just been really struggling as of late, and we got to see a total flip flop come this last stretch of February and into March.
I mean, there's not much time left. There only 13, 14 days left of February, and then
4 weeks we'll have a bracket.
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely crazy.
Awesome.
Before we had to break this
awesome.
last thing, we're not even talking basketball, but I just mentioned 4 weeks. I don't know if you pay attention to golf at all, but
a little bit. I pay attention enough.
In 4 weeks from now, or this was yesterday when we were talking about it, it would be Sunday at the Players, which is one of my favorite tournaments.
Players is a great tournament.
I love watching golf. Then Selection Sunday, and then that Monday is when tampering begins for NFL free agents. So 4 weeks from now, we'll be having a good time.
Let's not forget that entire Sunday and that entire weekend is all conference tournaments as well. That's going to be a great weekend in about 4 weeks. So stay tuned for that. We're going to have a packed show that Monday. I'll tell you that much.
March 13th and March 14th.
Yeah, put that on the calendar.
It's circled on mine. I'll tell you what. Well, we're going to head to break. When we come back, we go into hashtag This Week in This League with the NBA. Tyler, your Celtics are struggling. We'll get into it next on WSBU 88.3 The Buzz.
Welcome back into 88.3 The Buzz. You're listening to Director's Cut with Nic Rohloff and Tyler Smith. We talked about our Bonaventure Bonnies at the beginning of the show, but now we're moving into the professionals. Hashtag this week in this league. And I can't start anywhere else because I know we're going to have a good start to it. Tyler, your Celtics lost 4 of the last 5, including losses to the Pistons and the Wizards this past weekend. What's going on?
I wish you could tell you what's going on. All right. To give you the gist of it, Marcus Smart hasn't played in 3 weeks, okay? He hasn't played.
Been 3 weeks.
Oh, yeah. I feel like it's been a year. The way that I've been watching Celtics basketball and Smart hasn't played, I feel like it's been a year. Now, granted, Celtics have been very competitive in games where they've been playing very good teams. I feel like they lost the loss to the Jazz. That game was a 2-point game, pretty much for the majority of the fourth quarter, and the Jazz pulled away in the last couple minutes. The Wizards loss, I don't even want to talk about it. The Pistons loss is rough because that was at home, and who do we let beat us? Oh yeah, Saddiq Bey, a rookie.
He was named rookie, or not even rookie of the week.
Player
of the week.
Nick just said actually before we came back from break that the East is so poverty. The East is so poverty that last place Detroit's rookie Saddiq Bey just got Eastern Conference Player of the Week. That's ridiculous.
That is ridiculous.
Yeah, so we let a rookie and DeLon Wright, and yeah, Blake Griffin was the 5th leading scorer for the Pistons, and we'll get to him in a little bit later. But Blake Griffin, the highest paid player on the Pistons, was the 5th leading scorer, and the Celtics still lost. Jason Tatum actually had a decent game, but yesterday might have been his worst game of all time as a Celtic. Might have been his worst game of all time. It was so brutal to watch. Kemba and Jalen were the only 2 that showed up. And, I haven't been asking much out of Kemba, and I liked what I saw yesterday. But there is, what the real problem is on the Celtics is that there's zero facilitation. No flow of the offense whatsoever. Kemba is not a playmaker. We're going to need to add a playmaker at the deadline. Jason Tatum is not a playmaker. Jaylen Brown is not a playmaker. However, both of those 2 have improved in their passing game over the past few years. But Kemba, he's just not a playmaker at heart. He's a scoring point guard. Now, we do need that because this team feels like it has endless holes. So we can use all the scoring we could get. But nobody's a playmaker on this team. Jeff Teague used to be a playmaker. He is an embarrassment to basketball right now. And I'm not asking playmaking from Daniel Tice and Tristan Thompson. So where is it coming from? Is Peyton Pritchard going to be our most confident passer on the team? I love Peyton Pritchard more than anybody. He is not a starting point guard yet. So this team has to make. When I say has to make a move, like when you get gifted a team with holes, but you have a $28 million trade exception on top of that, and you don't use it for something meaningful, there's going to be some serious questions at the top of this franchise. Now, Danny Ainge has taken full responsibility for this, and he should, because you had the chance. You had the chance to get a guy in Miles Turner who is having a serious case for Defensive Player of the Year right now, and you let Gordon Hayward walk to Charlotte for nothing. Now, you can say all you want. Oh, Hayward wanted to go to Charlotte. That's where he wanted to be, so the Celtics let him go. Get that out of here. Can you please stop rationaling your poor front office decisions? I defend Danny Ainge to the grave. And the way he's been handling the team for the last year, I didn't care when Kyrie left. We knew that was happening. I didn't care when Kyrie left. And I really was, I was glad that Rozier left. The way I don't love it, but we got Kyrie in return. Yes, he left, whatever. I was hopeful that Terry Rozier would leave. Now he's dropping 40 a game. But last season, he lets Gordon Hayward walk for nothing. Gordon Hayward's back to all-star form. He's jumping higher than I've seen him jump in 4 years. And he's averaging basically over 25 points a game. What is going wrong in Boston to where he can't get free agents to commit and he can't get guys to buy into the system in order for this team to Brown, Tatum, Smart, Horford. And let's not forget we had Marcus Morris, Daniel Tice, and a couple other guys off the bench too, where that could totally contribute. How did that team not make the Eastern Conference Finals? I have no idea to this day, but this team presently, the Celtics, they got problems.
I think you talk about the Celtics playmaking, but I think the most underrated aspect of superstars are their playmaking abilities.
Mm-hmm.
There are certain teams that have really good players but lack playmaking, which means they aren't good. The team that comes to mind off the rip is the Minnesota Timberwolves.
Mhm.
They have so much talent. Malik Beasley has been an absolute stud this year scoring the basketball. Karl-Anthony Towns, he's just returning after a little bit of a break because of COVID protocols. D'Angelo Russell, Anthony Edwards, 4 certified scorers that ultimately equal losing. Why is that? Because none of them can facilitate. I'm not saying that the Celtics are that, because they're obviously much better. But when your 2 best players, Jaylen Brown and Tatum, certified scorers, and they can defend, they're getting better at playmaking, but they can't do it on a level to where it elevates the scores around them.
Well, again, what scores around them? Because they're everything for this team. They're literally everything. They are the playmaker. They are the defender. They are the scorer. They play every role for this team, and that's why we need more help.
That's my concern, though. I think there's too much help because you need a big inside to defend, and you need a playmaker. Well, what are you supposed to do when you have that contract with Kemba Walker? Like, you brought him in to be that playmaker, and he's a good scorer. He's having a really bad year, and he had just a couple. He had actually
his recent stretch, though. His most recent stretch has not been bad. He played really good against the Raptors. He played really good against the Wizards yesterday, but obviously, that game resulted in a loss. However, I want to bring up a proposition that I've had. I don't know if I brought it up, but I don't know if I brought it up on the show live. The proposal you mentioned, Kemba Walker's contract. We need an inside big, and we need a playmaker. No. Lonzo, Steven Adams for Kemba.
And okay, I've had this discussion with my Celtics roommate. I don't know if it would be enough, straight up. I also don't know if the Pelicans are willing to get rid of Steven Adams, which is odd because they should.
Yeah, he's an absolute contract. Like, you need to get rid of that.
But that's the thing, though, that I don't get that trade from their aspect, and I could probably talk about the New Orleans Pelicans and their issues for hours. That's no joke.
No, yeah.
Because I watch them because Lonzo's one of my favorite players, and I see what they deal with and what their issues are on a game-to-game basis. Yeah, I don't know what you'd have to include. Maybe a first. That's tough.
Because we have a lot of firsts right now that are late rounders, that are late first rounders that they could obviously package in a deal like that. I mean, because you're trading a bad contract in Adams, and then a decent player by NBA standards in Lonzo Ball to a bad contract in Kemba, but Kemba solves the scoring hole that they need from the guard position in New Orleans. He eliminates the inside presence. Is Jackson Hayes still on the Pelicans?
Oh yeah, he doesn't play because he's so bad.
Oh, okay. I didn't know he was so bad. I thought he was actually decent last year.
He cannot defend.
Really?
Which is interesting because he's so athletic.
What he came here to do.
He is a very athletic big, but he cannot defend. He doesn't understand the concept of offense other than jumping really high and dunking.
Sounds like he just doesn't know how to play basketball.
I think you're getting better on Gomez. That's a sign that
Juancho got some game, all right? Juancho got some game. Let's not slander my boy.
He couldn't touch the floor in Denver. He only did in blowouts. So
who Hernan Gomez?
Yeah.
He was in Minnesota last year though.
Oh, he doesn't play in general though.
Oh really?
Well, now he does.
Yeah.
But
he played for Minnesota. He put together a decent stretch last year. That's why I mentioned it. I would have been fine with Juancho slander if he wasn't anything good. But he actually had a decent stretch of games last season.
But but from the Celtics aspect, that's perfect. And
yeah, I mean,
it's
I'm
actually
gonna bring up the perfect trade here.
This is a bold take. I don't know if I told you this, but I actually think the Celtics would benefit from, no joke, Kemba Walker for Lonzo Ball straight up. I think that it might be going too far.
I would need at least Redick.
My Celtics roommate agrees with me that he'd actually like that. Is just straight up.
Well, it would create cap for us too.
It would create cap room. He is he is a restricted free agent coming up, Lonzo Ball. He defends 10 times better than Kemba Walker. When Marcus Smart comes back, that backcourt would terrorize other backcourts defensively.
Best defensive backcourt in the league, that would be.
Lonzo he got off to a rocky start this year. was shooting 28% from three about 3 weeks ago. It's now up to 38%. So that just tells you how good he's been the past 2 or 3 weeks.
Well, stock's rising, so now the price goes up, of course.
Yeah. But he can defend. He's the playmaker you needed. He can create for Kemba and Tatum so they could play more off ball. But if they do have the ball in their hands, he's, like I said, a 38% 3-point shooter right now, shooting about 46% over the last 3 weeks. He can knock them down if open. That'd work money. And if you could get Steven Adams as well, it'd be interesting to where you think that would put the Celtics, because they're the 5th team behind it ranking standings wise.
Mm-hmm.
Would you think they have a chance to beat Milwaukee?
Well, I don't think Milwaukee's very good.
Yeah, and we were going to touch on that.
We're going to transition to that in just a second. Before I, extend this Celtics tangent for too long, the one thing I will say about that proposed trade, and I don't want to stress on a hypothetical too much because this probably won't happen, but the problems that would be fixed for the Celtics if you do that Kemba for Lonzo and Steven Adams trade is that now 1 through 4 can defend all 4. They can switch.
100%. Yeah.
Lonzo, Smart, Brown.
Because Lonzo's 6'6".
They can all switch on everything. So that'll create defensive nightmares for other teams. And then you have Steven Adams in the middle who can go block shots and dunk and do everything that Tristan Thompson does, but better. So
he's a lot tougher too.
Yeah, and the only downside of doing this trade is that, again, it harms Danny Ainge's reputation in the free agent market. You just signed Kemba last year. You tried him out for a year. He stinks a little bit this year. He's picking it up a little bit, but then you just ship him away.
But I guess it would hurt. But if it makes your team better, though,
it does make your team better, and that's the whole point of being a general manager is getting your team.
Like
better.
I know he got hate with the Isaiah Thomas trade, and because he was a fan favorite and he was loved in the city. But if you're gonna tell me that the Celtics didn't win that trade, what?
Looking back, let before we transition to Giannis here.
And I was speaking at the time. I still think they won the trade.
At the time,
too.
the Celtics just absolutely blew that trade out of the water. But looking at it now, Cavs were gonna lose Kyrie Irving no matter what. They got Colin Sexton out of it.
Yeah,
that's the only thing that remains out of that trade on either of the two teams. If you knew that, it's the only thing that remains out of both the Celtics and the Cavs from that trade is Colin Sexton. So in reality, long term, Celtics win. I mean, it's Cavs win. Excuse me. But
at the time, it wasn't even close.
Oh, at the time, it wasn't even close.
I mean, Isaiah Thomas scored 26 a game that year, but
28 a game. He was
28, but he couldn't. He can't defend. I mean,
no, he was just absolute. You switch on over the playoffs, and that was the game. You just do that the entire game, and because you can't take him out for offensive purposes, but you can't. So it was just a half. Basically, you got a half of what the Celtics were when they played in the playoffs with Isaiah Thomas. Now, he had some absurd games, but I'm going on a tangent right now. Isaiah Thomas had some absurd games, but he was obviously expendable for Kyrie Irving.
Yeah, let's move on. We've talked about the Celtics too much. I mean, you could talk about them for another 3 hours, but I mean,
give me a whole Celtics show.
The Heat fan in me needs to move on. Let's talk about Giannis. And did he make a mistake signing his extension? Because the Bucks are 16-11. It isn't terrible.
Much better last year to start.
But something's not there. I don't know what it is. They've lost 3 in a row now. They lost to the Suns, the Jazz, and yesterday to the Thunder. And so they were 16-8 before that, doing well. There's just something about this team that makes me think, yeah, they're losing in the second round again.
I'm trying to find it because, maybe just looking at the depth chart alone, it's got to be down low. Starting Dante DiVincenzo, I don't know if he's a starter. I think he's a fine 6-man, second guy off the bench who can come get you some buckets. I don't know if he's a starter on a championship team. Obviously, you have your big 3 in Holiday, Middleton, and Giannis, and then if you count Brook Lopez in there too, he's been good. I mean, obviously he's getting older by the year, so he's only going to regress. But the bench, I mean, these are guys who can come get buckets off the bench. I mean, DJ Augustine is Could you find me a more quintessential backup point guard than DJ Augustine? Ever? No. So you got him coming off the bench. You got Bryn Forbes, who had some good years in San Antonio. Pat Connaughton, who can give you a spark from some corner threes, some high-flying dunks. He's got that ability. And then your only backup big outside of Brook Lopez, who cannot play 40 minutes, I'll tell you that much, is Bobby Portis. And not only is he undersized, he's not a great defender. So that's where the Bucks are really going to get killed when it comes to playing teams that have that inside presence. But as of right now, I would say that Giannis did sign a mistake of an extension.
I think that Giannis made a mistake, but I don't think it's his fault.
No, it's the organization. I mean, they couldn't get him Bradley Beal. That was it. That's what he needed.
I think he needs a certified scorer alongside him.
He's not
Middleton's solid, but it's not going to get the job done.
Is it crazy for me to say that Giannis is a 30-point per game scorer that's not a scorer?
No, yeah, 100%.
He scores 30 points per game, but he's not a scorer.
And you wonder why he gets quote unquote exposed in the playoffs. He puts up numbers, but his teams always lose. It's because he can't do anything outside of driving. People on Twitter make the joke he's just running dunk man, which I laugh at. But it's just when you have no, and this is another Twitter term, and no back, no offensive game.
No.
When your whole thing is drive by, dunk on you, finish over you, yeah, that's fantastic. But when teams, and this phrase is so overused, but it has to be, build a wall, don't let you get to the hoop. We'll see if Jrue Holiday, we'll see if Chris Middleton can beat us from the outside. That's where the Bucks go into issues.
You mentioned no bag. And I'm just sitting here thinking for about 10 seconds, just thinking of one move that I, just visually can picture Giannis doing on the offensive end. I can't do it. It's
oh, you can't? I know one move. Him and Siakam share it.
Oh, spin move?
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's different. No. That's not an off. That's not.
I wouldn't. But that's like his move though.
Yeah.
Like he just drive. He loves to drive right.
Okay.
Spin. Finish left hand.
So I misspoke. I want to say that there's no move that involves dribbling the basketball that Giannis has in his bag. I mean, the spin move is obviously all you got to do is use your pivot, stick your elbows out because nobody's coming after you, Giannis, and just dunk the ball. So that's all he has to do for his one signature move. And if that's what it's going to be for the next, 5 or so years, and he doesn't develop any sort of offensive, game, how is he going to move up the ranks as far as legacy goes?
Yeah, and this just shows you we're not the only ones that think this. The media isn't the only one that think this. NBA players think this. When they lost to the Suns, Giannis had a game-winning mid-range, and it came out after that Devin Booker told the media and said when he saw Giannis take the pull-up jumper for a game because they were only up 1, he said, "We're good." I mean, I love Giannis, and he can make a mid-range.
Oh man!
But he can't do it consistently, and when it matters, I'm a big Giannis guy.
I like watching him play.
Yeah, actually, let's take a step back here. I'm a Giannis guy myself as well. I think he's a dominant player. I think he's probably one of the best defenders I've seen in a long time. And he still has his limitations. That's just the reality of it.
And we go back to the offensive bag thing that he desperately needs. He needs to get a move outside of driving and dunking and finishing. Because one guy in the system he fan because I watched Jimmy Butler. He struggles shooting from 3, but he still got moves. He can get to the mid range, stop, pop, turn around, spin. Absolutely. He can do these things in the mid range. Giannis can't do that.
Even a move? I would even classify this as a move. Just simply driving to the short corner and taking a mid-range mid-range pull-up on the baseline. You see, I promise you, if he took it 100 times, he'd make 40. 40. I don't trust him shooting outside of 15 feet. I don't.
And if he makes it, it's good for you. Do it consistently.
Everybody gets happy when Giannis makes it. They don't expect it. And
no,
that's what you're going to need from an MVP, a superstar, a champion.
I like what you said there, and they get happy. Teams, when Giannis makes threes, they smile. Because that means, guess what? He's going to shoot more.
Yep.
And then he's going to miss more. And, there goes the defensive possession. I can take off because Giannis decided to shoot a 3-point shot. And He actually shot like 32% last year. I think it was 32, 33.
Which the most horrible.
No.
I mean, Marcus Smart shot 25 for 4 or 5 years, and he was still shooting them. I mean, Giannis is 32% respectable enough.
But he couldn't do it in the playoffs, and he's shooting 28% from 3 this year.
And you can leave, and let's not act like he isn't the easiest player to close out on the entire NBA. That shot takes 5 seconds to get from his hands to the basket.
He needs to get better from the free throw line too. He's shooting 64%.
Don't get us wrong, though. We love Giannis. We do.
Yeah.
We promise that we're Giannis guys, and we think he can be the best player on a championship team, but he's just got to develop that offensive bag over the next few years. And like you said before, he's got to add a complimentary scorer. I don't think Middleton's the second best player on a championship team. I don't think Holiday's the second best player on a championship team. Bradley Beal, he is. Should have got him. Sorry, Bucks.
I tweeted back in the bubble when this was before the Heat even squared up with the Bucks. I was like, when they played the Magic, I was like, Giannis got to know that he can't win a championship with Chris Middleton being his 2. He's got to know that.
Oh yeah.
But apparently he doesn't. No. And it hurts me because I'm a Heat fan. There was rumors of him possibly going to Miami, or I think where was it? I think it was Toronto, were the 2 teams that he would consider going to outside if he left the Bucks. And I really wanted him on the Heat just because if you put Bam, Jimmy, and Giannis 3, 4, 5, I don't think anyone's scoring. But
right.
I digress. Well, let's move on. Yeah, because Giannis said something after they lost to the Jazz, which intrigued me and intrigued a lot of the world. He said that the Jazz are the best teams in the West. And the Jazz, yes, they have the best record in the NBA at 22-5, but it's almost with the Bucks. There's something there. Like, do you buy into it? Some people do, some people don't. I want to see where you stand.
Okay, so I'm sure you don't buy into it, and I hate to agree with you again. But I'm going to say I don't buy into this Jazz team, and I'm not going to take credit for this, even though I did think, this team was reminiscent of this other team, and it's the 2016 Atlanta Hawks that went.
I love everyone makes that comparison. I laugh at it every time.
You know what? For good reason, because they didn't have that established, that guy can go win me a championship, but they're successful in the regular season. The Raptors have done it before with, DeMar DeRozan being the best player. He was never the best player on a championship team. I would consider DeMar DeRozan the equivalent of Donovan Mitchell in that kind of setting, albeit Donovan Mitchell has way more range and probably a bigger offensive bag than DeMar DeRozan. But it's kind of that same situation where, they have that scorer, then they have that second guy, there's Gobert, and then they have a bunch of decent pieces around them. Both of those Raptors and Hawks teams, they had that Damari Carroll, who was there on the wing to defend and hit corner threes. They got Bogdanovich, they have Ingles, they have 2 of them actually. So there's where the Jazz get their comparison there. But, Donovan Mitchell, is he that guy who can go win you a championship? Not right now. Not discrediting what he can do. He's a 25-point per game scorer. He's 5 assists, he's 5 rebounds. And that's great. It's not best player on a championship team, especially in the West.
I like you said, it's unfortunate that we agree, but we do. Because if you look at their numbers, they've won 18 in the last 19. They've been on a roll, and you can't discredit them. They're good. They shoot they are unbelievable shooting team. They shoot 40% from 3. They lead the league, I think, in attempts. So they shoot a lot of 3. That's their motto, and they make them, which is good.
These guys are good 3-point shooters.
Jordan Clarkson is going to win 6 Men of the Year.
Yeah, I'll admit, Jordan Clarkson, great addition.
17.5 off the bench per game. They acquired him halfway through last season for who was it? Was it Emmanuel Mudiay?
No, Clarkson was on the Cavs, no?
Yeah, but then he got traded to the Jazz mid-season.
Oh, you know what? Keep talking. I'm gonna get that for you.
All right. But anyway, going back to the Jazz, you can't line them up against a fully healthy Lakers team, a fully healthy Clippers team. And I'm sorry, you can't tell me they're beating them in a 7-game series.
Oh, close. Very close. Just pretty much the same player, just from a different place. Dante Exum.
Oh, yeah, that is the same player. so the same person.
Dante Exum is the same exact player. I don't want to hear it.
But either way, you just can't. The numbers are there. The record's there. I just can't buy into it. They lost to the Nuggets. Obviously, they blew a 3-1 lead in the first round in the bubble. I feel like them and the Nuggets are in the same place right now. Like, really good teams. They're going to be harder to defend. But when you play those elite teams like the Clippers and Lakers, they're going to struggle.
I disagree with that take. The Nuggets are for real.
Well, I think the Nuggets are for real too.
Are they good enough to win the championship?
I don't think so.
I do.
You do?
Yeah.
I love nothing more because I love Nikola Jokic with all my heart.
Yeah.
But
he's been playing better defense this year. He's playing more efficiently than ever, which is crazy for a guy who I've been calling efficient for probably 3 years now.
He's a wizard with the basketball,
Absolutely,
by the way.
like he's literally Luka Doncic at 7 feet tall. Like, come on, this guy, he basically just took. I mean, let's not talk down and injuries or anything, but he took Anthony Davis out of the game last night. Not in that way, but just straight up on the basketball court. And he's just the ultimate facilitator. I mean, I've never seen such a functional basketball team where their offense is coming completely from the high post.
Yeah, I mean, it's fun to watch them play. But so you would say the Nuggets are more real contenders before you say the Jazz?
Yeah, it's funny that it is that way. When the Nuggets sit 4 games below the Jazz right now, 6 games below the Jazz right now, something crazy like that.
To me,
I have the standings right in front of me, but I'm getting a buffering screen right now, or else I'd have the numbers for you.
The standings, I can get that, but I love Jokic. I actually like Jamal Murray. I do not buy in, and he had an unbelievable bubble last year.
Yeah.
I do not buy in, and we talk about it with Middleton. I don't think he can be the second best player on a championship team. That's my thing.
Oh, Murray, you're talking?
Yeah, Jamal Murray.
Okay.
He's talented, and can score the ball, but he struggles defensively, and that just kills me. And to go to your point, it is about 6.5 game difference between the Jazz and Nuggets right now.
That's actually a lot, but I'm going to say that I don't think – I do agree that Jamal Murray won't be the second best player on the championship team. And maybe I'm saying this, and it'll be a year or two away, but Michael Porter Jr. is going to be the second best player if that team ever wins the championship.
He started off really hot this year.
You know what
he's cooled off.
And you know what he started off with? An ego bigger than my head. And my head's big, guys. It's like he thought he was just so entitled after the bubble. It was a little weird to me that he didn't kind of accept his role. He was asking for more shots, and he was asking the offense to kind of flow almost nearly through him. That was kind of confusing me because he just because of one stretch, in Disney World, doesn't mean that you're automatically the number one option over a guy that's pretty much an arguable MVP this season in Jokic. So if that team does become real championship contenders, you can call other teams contenders and stuff like that, but when you get down to real championship contenders, it's less than a handful. And if the Nuggets want to get to that, Michael Porter Jr. is going to be the second best player, and Jamal Murray will be the third. That is a championship team to me.
And we're going to head to break in a second. But one thing I want to say with the Nuggets while we stay on their topic, I want them. That's not true. I don't want them to because I want the Heat to trade for Bradley Beal. But if the Nuggets wanted to trade for Bradley Beal,
they're a championship team.
And here's my thing. I think they'd become instantly, and it's crazy to say this, but a lot better if it's tough to sell, but Murray and Michael Porter Jr. for Bradley Beal, no picks included.
No.
You think they become better or worse off that? I think
they become worse off that just because they don't have a ball handler at that point.
Well, Brad could play the point guard.
Yeah, but I'm not going to ask him to do that.
Well, then I would just slide Morris and solid, and then you got my new favorite guy, Frank Capazzo.
Who is this guy? Francisco Campuzzo or whatever his name is. He was dominating last night. I was watching some Lakers.
This guy was dominating. He must have came out of nowhere. There's going to be Twitter memes about that guy in about a day, I promise you.
No, I tell you, if he was on the Lakers, he'd
already be putting rings on him on Twitter and stuff like that. Oh my God, MVP trophy with Francisco Campazzo. I'm sorry if I butchered your name. I'll remember it by next week. But you're new on the scene, buddy. But yeah, before we go to break, I mean, you talk about the hypothetical trade. I think it would take Porter, bench guys, picks, big contract.
That can get Bradley Beal done easy.
I
You're overvaluing Beal right now.
Might be, but I also just had on my mind still going to the Nuggets. Is Will Barton injured, or is he on a different team?
You know what? I think he went to a different team, but he could be hurt. He was hurt a lot last year.
I
haven't seen anything of him this year.
Because I was thinking about trade pieces for Bradley Beal if you didn't get rid of Murray. That might have been a little overzealous.
As a piece in that trade alongside Michael Porter Jr. But I was like, I just realized, like, I've seen the Nuggets play this year, and I don't remember Barton doing it. He's on the roster.
Yeah, he's
Played 25 games
this year.
apparently. Okay, I guess
It's funny. I watched the majority of that Lakers game last night. I didn't see him play.
Yeah, me neither, right? Maybe he just missed one game and then just recently biased. But you want to talk about something? I just went to the Nuggets roster. Jokic, this is unreal. And I'll get into this more when we talk about the NBA in the second hour. He leads the team in points, rebounds, assists, steals, and blocks with a PER of basically 31, which is unreal.
Yeah, if you don't know PER numbers, like 31, anything over 30 is just ridiculous.
Yeah, like it's unheard of. Like that was the main case.
That's what I said when we first introduced this segment. You know, I've been calling this guy efficient as heck for 3 years now, and he's just getting more efficient. It's crazy.
We break down some college basketball outside of Bonnie Land, and we talk about the committee's first top 16 release, and we even get into some NFL talk. Yeah, I know. We still got to talk some football.
That sport never sleeps.
Yeah, stay tuned on the Director's Code. Nic Rohloff and Tyler Smith from 88.3 The Buzz. Welcome back to 88.3 The Buzz, live from Bonaventure University. You're listening to the Director's Cut with Nic Rohloff and Tyler Smith. As we begin our second hour of the show, we're going to dive right back into some college basketball because there's some interesting things. Now, like we said before break, the committee released its top 16 seeds, but I want to start somewhere else. Let's go to Madison, Wisconsin.
Boy, that Big Ten is fun.
Yeah, I mean, Michigan, COVID pause, 3 weeks, first game back in Wisconsin, and they just came back from 13 down to win. This Michigan team is a lot better than I thought, a lot better than everyone thought.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to ask you, and as we look at this Michigan team closer and more in depth, how close are they to the top two?
They're still a tier below. And they do have impressive wins. I mean, Wisconsin yesterday was pretty impressive, and they compiled before they went on pause. They had a string of wins that were at that time good wins as well. But their big three they have Isaiah Livers, Hunter Dickinson, Brandon Wagner. Man, those guys are good. And Eli Brooks, Mike Smith. Those guys can also, even Austin Davis sometimes can put in 10 points for the Wolverines as well. Now, they have the positive end of what St. Bonaventure has in where they're so versatile and a lot of guys can score in bunches for them, but they have what Bonnie's lacks as well in depth. And that's why Michigan is poised for a long run in the tournament. And Juwan Howard has done a phenomenal job of basically taking a program that was good, and he's kind of making it a basketball school now. Michigan is slowly becoming a basketball school. Now, I don't know if that's the fault of Juwan Howard or John Harbaugh. That's a conversation for a different day. But as of right now, Michigan is still a tier below, but I think they are alone as the best team in college basketball.
I think you are right, but I do got to say Juwan Howard is one heck of a coach, man. He is very, very good.
And I know what you're going to say. I mean, sitting behind Eric Spoelstra for 5
Yeah,
years,
I mean, those Heat guys, man, they can coach. They can coach out there in Miami.
Spoelstra, Pat Riley, not Juwan Howard. That's the coaching trio of the Heatles.
Yeah, the Heatles. But anyway, I agree. I think Michigan is standalone the third best team, and we'll look into it a little bit later. But they have a big meeting in
Just a week now.
Just a week from or 6 days against Ohio State. It'll be 3 versus 4 on Sunday. There's something that can take place of football, not as good, but
The game.
it's a game. But I think you're right. But I think it's weird because we talk about Gonzaga and Baylor so much, deservedly so. Like those two are in a tier of their own together, 1A, 1B. Then you've got, I think, Michigan in the tier below, but I don't think there's anyone with Michigan. That's my thing.
That's what I think it is. I mean,
And then there's a Michigan in a tier between. They're like in their own little tier underneath the big guys, but I think they're wildly better than Ohio State and the rest of the top 10.
Okay, so the only team that I could see actually giving Michigan some serious issues is Illinois. I think I don't know if they have played yet. I could be just totally doing bad journalism right now, but I don't think they've played yet.
I like Illinois, but they're weirdly too inconsistent, and I mean, it happens, but I don't like how they're young or they're so dependent on young players.
Yeah, I mean, Kofi Cockburn they are young, but they are a little experienced. I mean, they had a whole season last year under their belt. I mean, obviously they got cut short, but they had a season under their belt, and they're back now. Obviously, Illinois has good wins over Iowa. They have good wins. They were competitive against Ohio State. They beat Wisconsin. They have these good wins, and I don't know. I think they match up perfectly with Michigan. But way better than Ohio State does, in my opinion. So that's why I just think that they're the closest team to Michigan, but I still think, the Wolverines are something to tear their own.
Yeah, I agree. Let's move on to a different matchup. West Virginia and Oklahoma probably played the game of the year on Saturday.
So glad I watched it.
Yeah, 91-90 in favor of Oklahoma. Obviously, Baylor's so much better than everyone else, but which team in the Big 12 can rival them in that tournament?
That's tough because I think both of those teams are legit. I actually think there's 4 Big 12 teams that have a legitimate Final Four chance.
The Big 12 is so good. Like
so good.
West Virginia, I swear, is a really, really good team.
Yes.
But I always see them losing. But that's not their fault. They're 7-4 in the conference, but you've got number 2 Baylor, number 9 Oklahoma, Kansas is ranked 23, 12 Texas, 13 West Virginia, 15 Texas Tech, not to mention Oklahoma State, who's just outside the top 25, including the not consensus, but could be the number 1 pick in the NBA draft. This Big 12 conference is loaded. I think, though, I would still give it to, I think Oklahoma would give Baylor the biggest
so that's
issues.
what I was going to say. Oklahoma will probably give them the best chance. And even though they're ranked above West Virginia and Texas Tech, I don't think Texas is in that tier. I don't think they're in that group of Big 12 teams that can give Baylor a shot. I do think it's going to be Oklahoma, and if they could put the offense together, then Texas Tech could put up some points.
That Texas Tech team intrigues me a lot. They got Mac McClung, the transfer from Georgetown.
Beast.
They're just so well balanced.
And Chris Beard, man, what a job
He is such a good coach.
Do you want to talk about making us, a university a basketball school? Tech, look right there at Chris Beard and Texas Tech. They become a basketball school faster than you could say Texas Tech.
Yeah, and it's crazy to think like.
Oh yeah, and let's not forget they got Marcus Santos Silva from VCU.
Yeah, I always forget he's on that team too.
Leads team of rebounds.
But Texas Tech is so funny because, and this is a testament how good the Big 12 is. When was the last time you would see a team that is 6th in its conference, 6-5 in its conference, but ranked 15th in the country?
Mm-hmm.
That is so weird. Like 6-5 in the conference and 6th is ranked 15th. Like
14-6 overall. How are you 14-6 overall and you're 6th in your conference? That's just supposed to show you how dominant the Big 12 is.
Yeah, Syracuse 6-5 and 7th in their conference. Why aren't they ranked?
Yeah, come on.
But that just shows how good the Big 12 is. And, man, I cannot wait 4 weeks from today when we have our first official look at the bracket. And actually 4 weeks exactly from today, we'll be doing our March Madness special.
Oh, yeah.
That we were robbed of last year. And because that's one of the best shows. My 2 favorite shows of the year, March Madness special and NFL Draft special.
Oh,
Those are
yeah.
my 2 favorites.
Oh, yeah.
Every year.
Because we just dedicate the entire show to that topic, and we just,
dive in that.
just literally head first into every game of the first round. It's going to be so much fun. March Madness is my favorite sporting event of the year, and we hopefully have the opportunity to go down to the Super Bowl. So, that says a lot that March Madness is my favorite sporting event of the year.
Yeah, and I'm still riding that high of predicting the last winner because the last tournament we got was 2019, and I predicted Virginia to win.
Yes, sir.
You did as well?
Yes, sir. I got one of pretty hefty some of Benjamin's off of that.
I get a nice cash as well.
In a pool, though.
It's actually funny. It's so crazy that you had Virginia winning, and I'm just reminiscing here. I predicted Virginia winning.
Who'd you have him beating?
Duke.
Oh my God.
Did you have Duke? Yeah.
I had him beating Duke.
It's funny, though, because our former sports directors, Isaiah Blakely and Joe Serralo,
I'm getting a little fuzzy on Joe's picks, but I remember this because I know Isaiah picked exactly that as well. He had Virginia beating Duke in the national title game, and I know Joe had, I think, Virginia in the Final Four, but I can't exactly remember where it finishing. But it's just so funny, that was the first time I ever predicted a correct Final Four winner. So
that's the first time I've done it as well. It's crazy how popular Virginia was of a pick that year.
Coming off losing to a 16 seed.
Coming off losing up to a 16 seed and having Zion, RJ Barrett, and Cam Reddish on the other side of the bracket.
Yeah, just going back to that. I mean, I just love that team. You had Hunter, Kyle Guy, Ty Jerome was my favorite player in college basketball. The team had some serious firepower, but let's not reminisce on them too much. We both gave our picks of Oklahoma probably giving Baylor the biggest issues this upcoming year in the Big 12. There's another team that we ranked pretty high that just fell a couple of days ago as well. Villanova lost to Creighton. Did we overrate them with Iowa?
No, we didn't. I think that what we did was underlooked Creighton. Creighton is legit.
They got some scores.
I'm telling you, Elite Eight team. Straight up. Mitch Ballack can shoot the heck out of the ball. Marcus Zagorowski, when he's on his game, he missed his first couple threes against Villanova. But once he got on, he looks like he could look like the best guard in the country when he's on his game. Obviously, Denzel Mahoney's given them great, scoring this year. They have 5 guys who average double digits. The Bonnies are lucky if they get 5 guys who score double digits in a single game. These guys have 5 guys who average it. So, it's been it's been a rather up and down season for Creighton. They've had some pretty tough losses. I know the loss to Providence was not in their plans. They were looking earlier in the season. They were ranked top 10, and then looking at it maybe a potential 2 seed in this year's tournament. Now they're but
if you had to give me a presumptive Big Ten conference tournament, Big Ten champion or Big East champion, excuse me, of the conference tournament, I'm going with Creighton right now over Villanova.
I would probably still lean Villanova personally, but I wouldn't be surprised if Creighton won it.
I think the matchup between Gillespie and Zagorowski gets won by Zagorowski 9 out of 10 times.
That's true. And I feel like we're being a dead horse saying this, but like outside of Gonzaga, Baylor, and maybe you could throw Michigan, there's so much parity in this year's college basketball. Like if you would have told me in any conference besides the Big 12, basically, that some random team won, like I would believe you.
Yes.
Like just like we mentioned, Texas Tech being 15th in the country. I don't think anyone but Baylor would win the Big 12 tournament. But if Texas Tech won it and they're 6-5 right now, like I wouldn't say like that's out of the realm of possibility. Like
no, and it wouldn't. Now you talk about how much parity there is. We have our we do have our NBA pick and rolls coming later. If I'm going to give you one more piece of gambling advice, do not bet on ranked teams when they're playing an unranked team that's kind of close to them, because they more times than not they're gonna lose, and that top 25 is going to be shaken up. For the week after week after week that it is. The new top 25 it becomes so different week in and week out because all these ranked teams just keep losing every weekend.
Yeah, and before we move on to the initial bracket preview, I want to talk about how bad the SEC is this year. Like it's so surprising.
Now
the highest ranked team is Tennessee at 19,
mm-hmm.
and then they've got Missouri at 20, and then Arkansas at 24. I never thought Missouri was really that good, and for them that they were ranked 10th in the country this past week, now they're 20th. I thought Missouri was probably the most overhyped team, and I will, depending on matchup, I am almost marking it down that I will pick them to be upset in the March Madness tournament first round.
Missouri, I was high on. I'm not gonna lie.
I am so.
I thought they could score. I thought they had a good combination of a good balance of offensive and defensive game, especially in a weak SEC where they could just kind of steamroll through that conference tournament. And I was wrong. They lose 2 straight to unranked at Ole Miss and home against Arkansas. I mean, they're falling from grace. They are, and they only beat Kentucky by 5. They only beat Alabama by 3 in a back and forth game where they should have lost against Alabama. Alabama was down over 20, and they came back with like 2 minutes left. It was ridiculous. And Missouri has some bad losses. I mean, at Auburn, didn't win convincingly over South Carolina. Didn't win convincingly over Tennessee. Lost by 20 to Tennessee at home. So like they don't have a great collection of a resume here. I mean, they did beat Illinois, which helps a lot. They did beat Oregon, which helps a lot. So they have some wins, but they're a very inconsistent resume that probably, like you said, could result in an early end to their march. Like
there's just like certain teams like I start paying attention to and like picking, like already penciling and picking. Like I say last year, but the last March Madness, I paid pretty close attention, and of course I had to with John Moran, how good he was at Murray State.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to pick them to upset whoever they played, no matter who it was. And they played Marquette and blew them out.
And once it was Marquette, it was like, oh, thank God.
Yeah, right. Like probably the easiest 5 seed ever. Because like other teams like I just don't buy in on. And that's like if I had to give anyone like advice filling out a March Madness bracket, if you pay attention to college basketball, if you don't buy into a team, pick them to lose early. Like, but it could bite you because I didn't buy into Purdue when they made it to the Elite Eight.
Carson Edwards.
Yeah, and almost beat Virginia to get to the final.
Talk about a game! Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I actually. Not gonna lie, the reason why I brought up the Virginia thing is I actually watched a 40-minute March Madness video today from 2019.
Oh, just all the games?
Of all the games, and it got me fired up.
I've had some days where I just sit in my bed and watch, March Madness 2019, 18, 17, 16, all the games in their little highlight packages. It does fire you up right before March.
But either way, before we get into NFL, because there are some storylines we have to talk about in football. Like we said, it never sleeps. The top 16 overall seeds from the committee, the March Madness committee, were released Gonzaga was the 1 seed overall. Baylor the 2. Michigan the 3. Ohio State the 4. Nothing surprising. Was there anything that surprised you when you looked at seeds 2 through 4, basically?
At seeds 2 through 4, I mean, I'm bringing it up right now. Now,
the thing that surprised me the most is
Yeah.
Virginia being a 3.
Virginia being a 3 is rough. Yeah, no, I don't love
They would
that.
be penciled in as a 2 seed, and I forgot to mention, I actually messed up on the ACC. Alabama's ranked 9th in the country. That is my bad.
Alabama's ranked 9th in the country, but they're 7th in the 16 seeds. So they're 2.
Yeah,
That's I would put Virginia over both Alabama and Houston.
I would also put them over Villanova.
I don't know. I think they're the same team.
I don't think this Virginia team will make too much noise in the March Madness tournament, but I still think they're a good team.
Yeah.
I would have them as the 2nd overall 2.
I actually don't have many problems with the majority of
I don't really have a
this.
problem either other than Missouri being the 4.
Tennessee at 11 is a little shaky.
Obviously, I just said I'm low on Missouri, and they're a 4.
And I don't love Tennessee either.
I would prefer,
Texas at 15. I mean, yeah, that's probably where they belong.
I'd prefer your Creighton
Yeah, Creighton's on the top 16 here. That needs to change. Yeah, no,
instead
that's
of Missouri at the 4 one.
yeah. No, Missouri's not a 4 seed. That's why I'm kind of confused here. There's no way.
I also think you could make a case for Iowa to be a 3 seed.
Exactly. Yeah.
I know
Okay.
we're
So,
high on Iowa,
I mean,
but
listen.
why is Tennessee a 3 seed?
These are minor changes, to be honest. There's nothing overly majorly wrong about their first rankings for March Madness, but obviously we're all going to have our gripes. I think that Iowa should definitely belongs as a 3 seed, regardless of resume, regardless of their bad wins. Like, they are one of the 5 most talented teams in the country.
It would be also very criminal to a 1 seed to have to play Iowa.
Oh my God! Yeah, because it was full. Think about if I was a 4 seed. And it says it here. They're the first 4 seeds, so they'd be playing number 4 Ohio State. They'd kill Ohio State.
Oh, in the bracket preview, they'd have Iowa playing Gonzaga.
Really?
Yeah, I feel bad for Gonzaga. I mean, Gonzaga beat Iowa, but I wouldn't want to play Iowa in the Sweet 16. That's brutal.
No, I wouldn't want Luka Garza for the second time after falling to him in the beginning of the season, and then you see him at the end. Yeah, I wouldn't want that.
When you look at March Madness again, it's the best thing you can do is experience matters.
Mm-hmm.
And Iowa being a very experienced team, I would find it hard to believe they would be subjectable to an upset.
Yeah.
So that's my thing. When I look at what teams could be upset, I'm looking at a good team that relies on one player a lot, or a very young team that's good. But Iowa, they're seasoned. I don't think they would be someone who could be upset. So whatever 1 seed would have to play them if they end up being a 4 seed. That'd be brutal.
Huh. I wonder how they kind of do this as far as the seedings go, because I thought that Iowa would be playing Gonzaga, because if they're the first 4, if they're the worst, or maybe that doesn't make sense. Yeah, because it doesn't make sense, because if Iowa is the best 4 seed, why are they playing the best 1 seed? Usually they give.
I thought it was the best 1 seed gets the worst 2 seed.
Maybe that's how they run it. It's not based on 1-4. It's based on 1-2.
It is based on 1-2.
Okay.
I forgot, but I do think.
But Alabama's not even the worst 2.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's a weird. Maybe it's just a rough draft, and they're just throwing all this. What they think of the top 16 teams, and they're just that's how they're doing it. They're just throwing them in the slots. But
they even when they tweeted it out, they have Region 1, and they have
I do. There is a science to how. I don't know the exact numbers, but I know there's a math to how that they see these teams.
I could have swore they did the best 1 with the worst 2.
Well, but yeah, because they call some the best team the number 1 overall seeds. There is an entire seeding 1 through 64, 1 through 68, however you want to put it. So there is an algorithm for having to put these matchups into place. So that I don't know. That's probably not what they really thought of in making their first 16. So we'll see. But obviously, we could just be totally wrong with the math here.
Yeah, I mean that was never my best subject, I tell you. But let's move on, because there is a lot of football stuff we have to talk about, and then we have to get back into the NBA.
Of course.
Let's start with J.J. Watt. He was released. Let's give our best landing spots but then give our best predictions to where we think he's going to end up.
Okay, I'll start. Seattle, come on. All right, JJ. Here we go. Here's my pitch. Listen, you could be the most loved defensive player that we've had since Richard Sherman. That's pretty tall. I mean, like Richard Sherman, Hall of Fame defensive back, he had a whole secondary pretty much named after him, Legion of Boom, and you could be the man that we've been. Oh my God! Like when I say that we've been hoping for a pass rusher since Michael Bennett left, we've been desperate. And J.J. Watt, by far, I mean, that's probably the team. And you say this next team in your prediction, so I don't want to give it away yet. But J.J. Watt, there isn't a better fit than Seattle. They need a pass rusher, and he fits the bill, and we can pay him, just a little bit more money than the veteran. I mean, the minimum that some other teams will be giving him out. So I want to hear your team first before I say what the other best situation could have been. But we'll see. What do you got?
Okay, so there's a lot of teams that could actually use him, and there's a lot of. Or I'm gonna actually do it.
Okay, what do you got?
Good spots for him to go. Steelers to obviously play with his brother.
I'm gonna get to that in a little bit.
The Bills need a pass rusher because obviously we're all saying contending teams because he obviously doesn't want to go to a team that can't contend right away with him.
No.
As crazy as it sounds, I'd love to see him on the Titans because they need a pass rusher.
They do, yep.
But he probably wouldn't go in division.
No, he respects the Texans too much, which is crazy how you respect the Texans. But
Chiefs could actually use him alongside Chris Jones. I'm just naming teams like the Packers.
Packers, if he doesn't want to play that much.
I think that's where I draw the line with my teams that would probably need him and contend right away with him.
Are you considering Seattle, even though I already said it?
I actually didn't even think about Seattle. I don't think I guess the fit is there, but I don't think there's any way he goes there.
No, probably not. There's no reason for J.J. Watt at age 34 or age 33, 32, 31 to go to a rainy Seattle. It's just no point. Might as well go somewhere where you either have your family or you got warm weather. So that's probably. But I just said the words warm weather, and I was like, oh yeah, wait, what if he goes to Miami?
Like that defense that's got a top 5 secondary, good young linebackers with Kyle Van Noy, Jerome Baker. They have a decent pass rush. Emmanuel Ogbah's pretty good, but if you have J.J. Watt, that defense becomes lethal. But I think they just need to use their money offensively to protect Tua and get him some weapons. So I don't see that happening, but that would be an interesting fit.
Definitely an interesting fit. Brian Flores stacking that defense out there in Miami.
But if I had to give my prediction, and I'll go first, I think the team he ends up going to, the Buffalo Bills.
Okay, so that's what. So that's what I was going to answer before. I was going to say that Seattle and Buffalo are the two teams in most dire need of a pass rush, and you could argue Tennessee as well. Most dire need of a pass rush that can also contend and have an offense that they're already kind of riding on. So JJ to Seattle, Buffalo, or Tennessee would be the perfect fit. What I think is going to happen, and I hate to say this, is the Steelers. There's just he
loves
for him. He
likes playing against them too. But I mean, just being in that city, getting to mentor your own brother as he kind of takes the crown from you as the NFL's dominant pass rusher, not counting Aaron Donald. That's where J.J. Watt needs to be, in Pittsburgh. But I wouldn't want him to go there. I mean, that just makes them that much better, and it gives Seattle another lack of pass rush. But it would be a storybook kind of last ride for J.J. Watt as he nears the end of his career.
It would be storybook, but I predicted the Bills because they're young. They're a team that J.J. Watt can help mentor, and they're a team that could obviously is a contender in the AFC that he would create an immediate impact for. So that's why I think he would go to Buffalo. But if I had to give a second, I actually wouldn't do the Steelers. I think they're my third team for him. Okay. I would do the Packers. And yeah, they've got some pass rushers on that team, but he could go back to his home because obviously he was born in Wisconsin. He went to Wisconsin for football. He could play in his hometown team. They're contenders. And they have good outside linebackers, but they could use help up the middle, I guess. And J.J. Watt's more of an edge rusher, but he could play inside because he's a great run stuffer. So
you can also create so many different packages.
Yeah.
Too. I mean, Za'Darius and Preston Smith on both the edges. That's what they've been running for the past 2 years. And if you just add J.J. Watt in one spot over, and you run all three of them at the same time, I mean, you're not going to be able to run the ball, I'll tell you that much.
Exactly.
And you're probably not going to be able to pass the ball either. But then again, you have to also account for how often can J.J. Watt be on the field. That's another burning question for teams trying to sign him. What are you really paying for here? What are you paying for, and what are you getting on the field? It's not really going to match up if a team offers him all this money and then he plays 60% of the snaps.
Right. I think if I had to put my stamp on two teams, I think it would be Buffalo and Green Bay to end up landing him. But I wouldn't be surprised if he went to Pittsburgh to play with his brother.
Yeah, I would say
actually both brothers. They're both on the team.
As I said, both brothers are there, so that just adds the extra incentive for him. And Pittsburgh, if they can get anything out of Big Ben, or if they find a quarterback, who knows? If they find if they have production from the quarterback position, that's all I gotta say. They will be back in Super Bowl contention because they were 11-0. And who was their downfall? Yes, receivers drop balls. Big Ben wasn't an elite quarterback this year. Nick said it all year. I said he wasn't that bad.
Never bought in.
Nick never bought in. I wouldn't say I bought in, but I didn't see him as detrimental to the team as he was. Couldn't throw the ball down the field. Couldn't get it out quick enough. You need better quarterback play in Pittsburgh. And, J.J. Watt doesn't solve that. But if they get that and J.J. Watt, they'll be back in Super Bowl contention.
Yeah, speaking of quarterbacks and J.J. Watt teammates, Deshaun Watson, do you think he gets traded before this next season? Because the Texans have been pretty adamant about not trading him, but Deshaun Watson has been pretty stuck on, I'm not playing.
What's going to happen?
It's going to be very interesting. You see
I've
people
seen hold out before.
Yeah.
But it's not like they're holding out for a new contract from the same team. They're holding out for more money. They're not holding out for.
He just signed a 5-year deal, an extension.
They're not holding out for get my $40 million contract out of Houston. And they're not. I saw Cam Chancellor hold out. I've seen I don't know. Thinking another Chargers guy held out for a little bit too, but. These guys hold out for whatever. Oh, Melvin Gordon.
Yeah, Melvin Gordon.
Holds out for, 3 games, maybe max at the start of the season. And then, they restructure whatever. They get the numbers worked out and they're back on the field. Deshaun Watson, I'm not so sure. He makes way too much money to, and he won't be giving a lot of it up if he does miss some of these time. I know he does lose money if he misses training camp days. And then, obviously, he won't get his game checks if he doesn't play. And he'll face fines for not showing up to practice as well. So he's going to lose a lot of money. But as somebody who's donated so much to the community and been able to have that leeway, and now he's got $200 million, doesn't seem like Deshaun Watson really cares too much about that. He just wants to get out of Houston. But then again, this is also the Texans that we're dealing with here.
It's true. It is the Texans.
So therefore, my honest opinion, just gut feeling, he won't get traded by the start of the season. There's no. The only time I could see if it doesn't happen by the draft, it's not happening. Because the team who trades for Deshaun Watson, the Texans, if they get over traded for Deshaun Watson, they're going to want to make picks with the guys that they're getting, right?
Right. Yeah.
If it doesn't happen by the draft, it's not going to happen.
It will be a big teller for sure if he doesn't get draft or traded by the draft. I think he ends up. Oh my God! I pose this question. I don't even know the answer to it because I don't. He can hold out, but I feel like the Texans are being. I don't want to trade him. We're not listening to calls right now.
No. And
why would you when you have that quarterback if they could somehow reconcile the relationship, then they got a top 5 quarterback that's still 25-26.
I don't think I've ever seen a quarterback that's been so adamant about such a broken relationship that cannot be reconciled ever. That's what it seems like with the Deshaun Watson mentality. Obviously, the Texans want to try their best to, keep him in town. But the way it looks right now, he wants out. If they can't get draft capital for him before the draft, you're not going to be very happy when it comes to kickoff next season.
Oh, 100%. And before we had to break, there's another quarterback that's on the trade market. I said last week at the end as a tease that we'd probably be talking about the new fit because everyone said that, you're going to get traded this week. That never happened.
Yeah.
There's reports of the Indianapolis their trade offers for Carson Wentz. The Eagles have yet to be offered a first for Wentz, and apparently they want a first-round pick for Wentz. I don't think he's worth it. I want to see what you think, and why do you think these offers are being pulled, and what is Wentz worth?
Okay, What is Wentz worth is a different question than why are these offers being pulled, because we have no idea what goes on in the Philadelphia front office. But apparently, it might be more of a dumpster fire than in Houston. Just the way that Howie Roseman runs that team. Apparently, like everything that's gone wrong for the Eagles in the past few years is just like all on him, and like everybody's blaming him. So obviously, he's got to fix whatever's going on in the front office and the relationship with team personnel and the roster and everything before he figures out what Carson Wentz's trade value is. But that probably won't happen. So Carson Wentz was going to be dealt for. What would I think it would be? It's tough. I mean, you don't get more than 2 mid-round picks. I mean, if you get a second, that's probably all you're going to get. If you get a third, you probably get a fourth. You're not going to get a second and a third. You're not going to get maybe you get a second and a fourth. That's probably the most I would give up for Carson Wentz.
I read a report that I think the Colts offered 2 seconds for Wentz.
That's a lot.
I wouldn't
pay that.
The Eagles obviously didn't accept the trade because Carson Wentz is in Indianapolis right now.
Yeah.
I also saw a report that the Bears offered a first-round pick. Was it Nick Foles?
Yeah,
I think it was. First-round pick, Nick Foles, and a Tariq Cohen, I think it was.
How do you not take that deal?
I do not know as well.
That is, first of all, you bring Nick Foles back to Philly.
The Eagles want too much for him.
Second, you get Tariq Cohen, who, by the way, has a WSBU bumper.
Yeah, he's on here.
Yeah, he's on here. And he's not the worst running back in the world. He's got speed. He provides something that Miles Sanders doesn't. He runs outside the tackles. Miles Sanders is more of an in-tackles guy. But, yeah, he provides an element of catching the ball out of the backfield, and that extra versatility to your offense that Jalen Hurts, as a full season of starting quarterback, will need as a competent, receiving back. So that's good for him. And then you get a backup in Nick Foles, who won you a Super Bowl. Oh, wait, and I didn't even mention the first-round pick. If that was offered and then and Philadelphia declined, then they are so far gone as a franchise that I can't help them.
Yeah, the Wentz saga is interesting because I want to see what he gets traded for when he eventually does get traded, because he won't be on the roster when it starts next year. I can almost guarantee you that. But he was just an MVP candidate 3 years ago, and it's just so hard. Like, can he return to that form? Maybe, but the last tape he's put on is so bad. There's no way teams are going to offer first, but I could see why the Eagles want one is because of how good he was.
All right. The problem is that I feel bad for Carson Wentz in this situation. He's basically being held hostage in a situation with no receivers. He won't be the starter.
His contract's also really bad.
His contract is also really bad as well. And teams that are trading for him, the Bears, the Colts. You think those are the two top of the line receiving cores in the NFL? I don't think so.
He'd have protection at least in Indianapolis.
At least. Let's not say that Chicago's some all-world offensive line. You're going to lose Allen Robinson if you go to Chicago. That's already whether Wentz gets traded there or not, he's gone.
Allen Robinson's gone regardless. If he signs back with Chicago, he's brainless.
If he just signs back with Chicago, the only thing I can think of is the highest paid receiver in the league.
Oh yeah, I'll give you that. But that wouldn't happen.
The only thing, it won't happen.
If Chicago wanted to give him that type of money, they would have done it before the season when he wanted money.
Yeah, the Bears don't pay receivers.
The Bears had a chance to re-sign him. Like Allen Robinson was like, yeah, let's get a deal done before the season started. Well, guess what? You didn't. Now you're letting a top 10 wide receiver, in my opinion, walk.
Yeah, and good for Allen Robinson almost, because that's not a situation I would have remained in for an extra 3-4 years. The Bears are not, offensively, the Bears are a dumpster fire as well. And if Wentz gets to go there, it'll probably be more of the same that we've seen in Philly for the past few years, albeit with a less imaginative offense. I'll tell you that much, because Matt Nagy might be the most bland coach I've ever seen in my entire life. He runs no unique scheme whatsoever. So it'll just be Carson Wentz throwing, short passes over the middle and 5-yard outs. That'll be what his duties are in Chicago.
And a lot of Cordell Patterson.
And a lot of Cordell Patterson end arounds and Wildcat and whatever they do in Chicago. It's so brutal. Don't know how they made it. Still don't know how they made the playoffs, but it's whatever.
Because Mitch brought him back, baby.
Oh,
yeah, that's good. That's also something I'm really excited for. I'm a big Mitch Trubisky guy because he went to my favorite college football school, North Carolina. But he's a free agent.
Oh yeah, I forgot.
So what team is going to sign? What team is going to sign him for a backup deal? That's the most intriguing.
Oh, that's so sad. He just started a playoff game 2 months ago, and now he's on his way to being a backup. But like Bortles syndrome.
I mean, who knows? Maybe some team. I'm trying to think of a team that could potentially sign him to be a starter. The only team that could come to mind is if Bill Belichick thinks he can fix him.
Oof.
Hey, I'll be happy.
That'd be your best option.
The Patriots might be one of the worst teams in the league, but I'll be a happy camper seeing my boy Mitch in a Patriots jersey every Sunday, baby.
That is a violent mentality, Nick. I'll tell you that much.
Hey, I was thinking about that. If we had Mr. Trubisky and the Patriots, we'd probably be picking another North Carolina quarterback first overall the next year.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, we're going to have the break. When we come back, we talk NBA, the Anthony Davis injury, who is our early MVP and our pick and roll. So stay tuned on WSBU 88.3 The Buzz.
First of all, I need
Welcome back to the Director's Cut with Nic Rohloff and Tyler Smith on 88.3 The Buzz from St. Bonaventure University. With the remaining 20 minutes left on our show, we're going to go back into NBA talk because there's a lot of early MVP discussion, and then there's also injuries, interesting quotes from interesting players. So we're going to dive into that in our last segment of the show. And we're going to start with who would be the early MVP this season. Tyler, I want to get your opinion first because I have some pretty strong opinions about this myself.
All right. So, I mean, anybody who listens to this show at any capacity has known that I am not the biggest LeBron James fan. I'm not. However, dude's 36. He's actually pretty much a
25, 8 and 8. It's insane. I mean, 25.5, 8 and 8. He gets a triple double or at least double digits in one of those categories other than points pretty much every game. So, he picks and chooses when he wants to have those otherworldly games, and the fact that he can still do that at 36 is absurd. There are competitors, but they're the second best team in the West right now. And if I had to really take a pick to leave the West right now, it probably would be the Lakers. just with what they've added. And, LeBron seems to just be getting better as he ages. And I almost want to throw up my mouth as I say this. He hasn't shot super well, and he didn't play super well last night. Obviously, Anthony Davis was injured for most of the second half, and the game was kind of out of reach at the end of the third quarter, early fourth quarter. So he wasn't attacking as much. But you can't argue with what LeBron. He's playing pretty much 40 minutes a night, like almost. He's almost playing 40 minutes a night, and he's 36 years old. That hasn't really been done since like the 90s when dudes used to play 40 minutes a night just because they could. And they just did it night in and night out. That's why their careers were 8 years long. LeBron's career is 18 years long, and he's still putting up the same numbers he was putting up in 2006 when I was a 5-year-old. So that's why I have LeBron as my MVP right now. I wish it wasn't that case, but I just can't argue with what he's doing.
Yeah, I don't think you can catch me on
same thoughts as that.
He's not ready for that LeBron reconciliation.
You can't do it. See, that's the thing though. I was young when he was on the Heat, like between 11 and 15 years old is when he was on the Heat. So I was a young kid. I didn't even like him then. Like, to be honest, like my favorite player of all time is D Wade, and I just it annoyed me that he just decided to come and ruin everything.
Ruin everything, aka bringing 2 championships in 4 years.
Well, that was my mindset as a young one.
Yeah, and once you give your guys, I do want to give a second pick if you don't have them, of course.
Oh, actually, I'm gonna I have 3 people in mind.
Okay.
It's an aggressive take, and it's probably showing my anti-LeBron takes, but I would have him 4th in my MVP voting right now.
Okay.
My number 1 would be Joel Embiid. Just he's dominating, rounding up 30 and 11. On the best team in the East. Me and you doubt the Sixers quite a bit, but he's very, very good, and he's been dominating this year. And we mentioned it last week. He's taking that step. He has the mindset when he steps on the court. Oh, I'm the best player on the court, and he's proving it. And everyone has always said he has the talent. He just has to play hard and have that mindset that he's the best. He is doing that now, and I think he deserves some more credit. He's up 7 points per game this year, essentially, while shooting 85% from the free throw line and 54% from the field, and even 40% from 3. Joel Embiid is having he's having an absolute unbelievable year to start the year, and he'd be my MVP to start the year. But my second would be the other center we talked about earlier today is Nikola Jokic. I said he leads his team in every single statistic. He averages 26.5, 11.5, and 8.7 assists. As a center, that's absurd. The Nuggets actually really started the season off bad, but Jokic has played 26 games, almost every game, and brought them back to a good record, 15-11. And the third on my list, and these are all in order, because sometimes I say things out of order, but these are in order for me, MVP voting, would be Steph Curry.
Okay, so yeah, I was going to mention Steph Curry, but I actually have another guy who I'm talking over him. Steph Curry was my third.
Wow, that's even bold.
Wow, that's
more
even
bold of a take
bold of a
than
take.
not having LeBron in my top 3. Who your guy that you're talking about is done.
But Curry is having a better statistical year than his unanimous MVP year right now. And this is the beginning of the year. He's averaging 30 on insane shooting splits. And the only reason why I would have him as my MVP is because he's got the Warriors at a record of 14-5. And 20 probably.
If you really
get down to the nitty-gritty of what most valuable player means, take Steph Curry off the Warriors. They're the worst team in the league. It's not even close.
And they proved it last year when they were the worst.
Yeah, they were terrible.
And he played 5 games.
Yep. And one thing that Steph Curry's been the most three-pointers in the league this season. He's scoring the most out of any point guard. He's carrying the Warriors on his back, single-handedly willing them to wins. And they sit above 500 right now. They would be at the bottom of the league. They would be Pistons. They'd be worse. They'd be worse than Timberwolves. You know what? They'd be worse than the Timberwolves, and that's bad. That's bad. It's real bad. if Steph Curry was on the team. Now, I want to give my third guy, who I actually have at number 2 in my rankings. I had Curry at 3. Number 2 in my rankings for MVP, Kevin Durant.
He's my 5.
Kevin Durant.
I knew once I said it out loud, I wonder who your person is. I was like, it's probably KD because my top 5 goes Embiid, Jokic, Curry, LeBron, KD. That's my top 5.
Mm-hmm.
But.
So it's funny because in a season like this, you really can't afford to miss games, right? It hasn't been his fault, but Durant is back now, and in games where he comes off of a missed game, he's averaging 35 points, 54% from the field, 41% from deep, and 90 from the free throw line. That's absurd. In a year where he's coming off an Achilles injury, and there's inconsistencies around the league with games getting postponed, and we've seen it actually for the past 2 days, today and yesterday. Games getting postponed at a higher clip than we've seen all season. But games getting postponed, teams being contract traced to the point where they can't, players can't play for 2 weeks. Durant's gone through all of that, and he's still averaging 30 points a game, 7 boards, and 5 assists, while being the only above-average defender on the Brooklyn Nets. That's crazy.
I've actually seen a stat where they did minimum 10 field goals against a game. Who gives up the lowest percentage of makes? KD was 2. He only gives up 38% field goal percentage when the closest defender or whatever it is.
When he's the closest defender, the guy shooting the ball. Yeah.
The only reason why I saw the stat is because it was from a Heat account because Jimmy Butler at the time was best, only giving him 37.7%. But that we're not talking about the Heat, we're talking about KD. Just quick little shout out there though.
It just goes to show how great Kevin Durant is because he's talked about as the most prolific, most pure scorer that we've seen probably since Michael Jordan.
I think ever. I think he's the best scorer ever.
I mean, Kobe, Durant, Jordan, talk about the 3 purest scorers of basketball that I've ever seen. I mean, I'm not talking about centers like Curry and stuff like that, even though they have the highest points. I mean, these guys can seriously put the ball in the basket from anywhere on the court. Durant is that guy who's been dominating for the past 10 years, and he's doing it off of a torn Achilles that took the best center in the league, arguably, in DeMarcus Cousins, out of a career. They're the same height. I promise you that Kevin Durant and DeMarcus Cousins are the same height, and Kevin Durant is able to dribble the basketball, have the quick first step, and play defense off of the same injury that took DeMarcus Cousins out of a job.
Well, just look at John Wall, too. He had an Achilles injury. He's out for basically 2 years, and I wouldn't say he looks like his old self because there's still times where he doesn't have his legs under him for a jump shot late in the 4th, but he's been very, very good for Houston off an Achilles.
And he's not improved, but he has seen him play at a decent level. Coming off an injury like that, he sat out for 2 years. Durant sat out for a calendar year. And do you see any difference? Any difference in the way that Kevin Durant plays basketball?
People told me he wasn't going to be the same. I was like, listen, if maybe he was an explosive player like John Wall, but even John Wall's defined the Achilles injury, maybe I'd give it to you. But Kevin Durant does not need to be explosive to hang 30 on you.
No. You can pull up from 35 out and just shoot it in your face because he's got an 8-foot wingspan. He's 7 feet tall. There's nobody that's ever scored like that, and I've ever seen in my life.
The only player in the NBA that I think that can contest him and actually make a difference on one of his jump shots is maybe Rudy Gobert because of how long he is. But if you put Rudy Gobert on him, up free drive by.
Yep.
Or
I'll just give it to either James Harden or Kyrie on his own.
Yeah,
but they have a mismatch too.
Yeah, it's unreal.
That is one thing I do want to touch on before we move on. That Durant, the only reason that he probably couldn't win the award is that he has Harden and Kyrie on his team.
Yeah, I think if it was just one of them, he'd have a good chance.
Yeah.
But
because I would argue that LeBron or Anthony Davis could win MVP in any given year.
Not this year for Anthony Davis.
No, I'm just saying in general.
Oh yeah, I know what you. Okay, now
two of them that they could both win it. If there's 3, it kind of creates that dilution, like when we saw with Clay, Curry, and Durant.
I get what you mean because that was one of my arguments towards why LeBron shouldn't have been MVP last year in favor of Giannis, because AD was putting up such good numbers. It was like if you take LeBron off the team, AD's still gonna ball out, and that team's still a playoff team. But if you took Giannis off the Bucks last year, Chris Middleton is your 1, you think that's gonna be a playoff team? Come on now.
Exactly.
That was one of my main arguments. But that's the thing when you look at people and you discuss the MVP award, some people should always argue the MVP should be best player.
Yeah.
Which I get that, but the name is most valuable. And to me, and that's why you
take Jokic off the Nuggets.
there you probably don't make playoffs. And we mentioned Curry and the
Warriors. You take LeBron off the Lakers with a fully healthy AD and that team around him, the team probably still wins games. So
If you take LeBron off that AD team last year?
just this year too.
Yeah, I mean they definitely
AD's
do.
healthy.
If AD is healthy, they definitely win games. I mean they have Schroeder, Harrell, Markieff Morris, and Anthony Davis, and Kyle Kuzma, and a couple other pieces that can string together some wins. But they wouldn't be nearly as good as they are now, obviously.
But do you think the impact for the Lakers if they lost LeBron would be equal to the Sixers losing Embiid? Because that Sixers team without Embiid is lost.
Yeah, that Sixers team is without Embiid is lost, and I want to segue to that because we only have 6 minutes left in the show. Ben Simmons said he was the best defender in the league.
Yeah, he said that. What was it? Friday night.
And then Saturday,
he got 36 dropped on him by Devin Booker. I actually tweeted it out because I thought it was funny. Because I'm not a big Ben Simmons guy. Because when you don't show the ability to improve, but people still praise you, I don't get it.
No.
And I give him that. He is a good defender, best defender in the league. No, and I'm glad Devin Booker verbal meme here, what part of my take does verbal meme. I took that personally.
Yeah, literally. And Ben Simmons, he hasn't, like you said, he hasn't shown the not the ability. He has shown the ability he can improve. He hasn't shown the want, the need to improve. He's been the same player arguably for 3 years now. And listen, nobody's saying that you're not a good defender, Ben. Nobody's saying that. We're all just saying that you have zero jumper, zero. Put me in a. No, I don't know about that, but no. But I'm serious. In all seriousness, he's got no jumper. I mean, he's unplayable in the playoffs, and that's bad if you're paying a guy $170 million and asking him to be your second best player
that's
going for a championship.
No matter how good Embiid is, I don't think the Sixers can come up the East is because of the inability of Simmons to space the floor and score. And this is what I mean, with his inability to improve. He's averaging 14, 8, and 8 right now. He's averaged that every year in his career, 8 and 8. He averages 8 rebounds, 8 assists every single year. But he averaged 16 his rookie year, 17 his second year, 16 and a half his third, and now he's averaging 14. So he's technically declined on the offensive end.
And like I said,
that's what scares me.
He's literally been the same exact player. And I saw something real quick. I saw something on Twitter yesterday, and it was only really Celtics fans and Laker fans that kind of were on my side of things. Who are you taking? Prime Rondo? Prime Rondo? Or Ben Simmons?
Oh, God.
Wow. Rondo, you had the ability to drop 40 on you.
He did.
He could get hot some nights.
I would take Rondo because he could have wasn't a great shooter, but he could at least shoot.
And people were trying to say that Rondo had KG, Ray Allen, Paul Pierce to pass to. I mean, Ben, you first of all, you've had pretty much every outside shooter that's ever came in the NBA play with you. You had what do you have? Bellinelli, JJ Redick, Kyle Korver, all these guys have played with you. And you still can't find open shooters. You still can't find Tobias Harris in the corner. You still can't find Joel Embiid on a dang pick and roll, man. There has to be something that needs to change about Ben Simmons, and it's not the defense. It's entirely on the offensive end. And if he can't, like you said, there's no chance they win a championship. And I'd put my life on that.
I think they need to trade Simmons for
real point.
I just don't know who's out there. I thought the Chris Paul deal. Back at if you just traded Chris Paul and way more for Ben Simmons, then that would.
They should have done whatever it took to get Harden. Tobias Harris, and Embiid would have came out the East. I know you were the first on it. But
the Harden to the Sixers was necessary, and I
mean necessary, and they weren't willing to give up Ben Simmons. And honestly, you really shouldn't have. I mean, when I saw the deal for Harden, and I know we have only a few more minutes here. When I saw the deal for Harden, it was very modest compared to what I thought it would be.
You thought it would be more?
Yeah.
They gave Torian Prince.
Torian Prince is nothing.
Technically, Karis LeVert.
LeVert and Allen, is that all I thought it would take? No, that's not all.
But 4 firsts and 4 swaps.
Yeah, I guess the picks. I mean, the picks really make a difference.
I guess
But,
the players are modest, but the picks were a lot.
and I guess it's not really what Houston was going for
And
in the
if
trade.
Houston was asking for Simmons and like 4 firsts, like that is a lot.
That is a lot.
Even though I don't like Ben Simmons, that's a lot.
It is a lot, but that's what I thought Harden's value was, to be honest. But, when you make such a vocal public trade request like that, your value greatly diminishes. So that's what happened for Harden in this Philly
And
situation.
before we get to our pick and rolls, I want to do like literally 1 minute, so we have to be real quick. AD has been injured again. They said calf strain, reevaluated in 2 to 3 weeks, which is basically after the All-Star weekend. So he's going to get 2 weeks off, then the All-Star week, and then he'll be reevaluated. What does this mean for the Lakers? Because I feel like they're going to struggle without AD, like record-wise.
They are going to struggle
might
without
end up being
AD.
the 3 or 4 seed in the West.
They are. I don't know if they'll end up being like the 4 seed because,
Well, I can see the Suns because they're hot, and I can see the Clippers jumping on with the Jazz. So I think that would be where the 3-4 would be.
yeah. I'm not super in on the Suns yet. They're not multiple serious playoff team for me, at least. But yeah, they are going to struggle with that AD. You saw it last night. They have no inside presence except for Montrezl Harrell, and he can't play 40 minutes a game either. So
He can't defend.
And it's so odd how he was just an actual decent defender last year, goes to play with LeBron and the Lakers, and becomes a bad defender. I don't know. I'm just grasping at straws here. But Montrezl Harrell has zero inside presence aside from catching and dunking. So we go to our pick and rolls, our 2 best NBA bets of the night. Nick, I want to start with you. Where are you starting?
I'm going bias pick. Miami -3. They're playing the Clippers in LA, but no Paul George, no Kawhi. If the Heat can't win by 3, they're dead as a team, and I must move on.
Lou Williams is coming for your head tonight. That's all I got.
I wouldn't be surprised.
That's all I got to say about that matchup. Lou Williams might have 35. Watch out for that.
No PG or Kawhi. You got to hope.
First, I will go with I'm actually going to take a road favorite today.
That's what I just did.
Yep, you took a road favorite. That's the Heat as a road favorite is a ridiculous call. It'll probably hit though, just because it's so dumb. Nets -4.5 at the Kings. The Kings got coming on a back-to-back. Nets haven't played since Saturday, so I just think that's going to be a game that they're going to win pretty handily. I think that's a double-digit win for the Nets.
My second and final one night, Utah 6.5. They're playing the 76ers.
They're laying the 6.5.
Embiid is questionable.
He's playing.
He is playing.
I just got the notification.
Oh, well, inopportune time. But the Jazz are on a roll. No, I'm switching up. I'm sorry. I got to do it.
What do you got?
Warriors 9.5.
Ooh, okay.
That's
So
a lot of points, but Curry's going to get the face of defense that stinks, so he's going to go crazy.
So, yeah, you said, Warriors 9.5. That's a fat number. I'm not going to lie. I'm actually going to take for my second game. I'm going to go a little unconventional. I'm not going with a side here. I'm going with a total. I actually like the under a lot in that game, 227.5. I just don't think, I don't think that Cleveland's going to score that much. I really don't. Wiggins has improved as a defender. Draymond's still out there, obviously, and you got, the rest of their wing defenders are not the worst in the league as well. So I don't see Cleveland scoring a lot of points tonight, and I don't really see Golden State scoring a lot of points tonight either. I think it's going to be a slow game, and it's not going to go high up.
All right, well, that's our pick and rolls, and that will do it for this night's edition of the Director's Cut on WSBU 88.3 The Buzz. Thanks for listening to Nic Rohloff and Tyler Smith on Director's Cut. We'll be back next week, same time, same place, breaking down more basketball.
Maybe someone will be traded in the NFL so we can talk about that. But, yeah, we're hoping.
Be like the NBA.
Yeah, come on, this league. Let's go. All right, stay tuned for next week. Thanks for listening, guys.